Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he worked on the damaged communication panel. The metal was hot under his hands, and sparks flew every time he touched the wrong wire. He had been fixing things on the ship for 3 years now, and he knew every bolt and circuit by heart. The Horizon's Edge was not the newest ship in the human fleet, but it was home to Jake in the 42. Other crew members who lived aboard her. The ship shook slightly as it moved through space. Jake steadied himself against the wall and continued his work. Captain Lisa Drake's voice came through the speakers, calling all hands to the main deck. Jake set down his tools and headed toward the front of the ship, where everyone was gathering. When Jake arrived, he saw the crew standing at the large windows that looked out into space. What he saw made his mouth fall open. Floating in the darkness ahead of them was something that looked like a small moon, but it was clearly not natural. The surface was covered in strange patterns that seemed to move and shift when he looked at them. Lines of faint light ran across the structure like veins. Pulsing with a soft blue-green glow, Captain Drake stood at the front of the group, her hands behind her back as she studied the alien structure. She was a tough woman in her 40s who had been exploring space for most of her adult life. Nothing usually surprised her, but Jake could see the wonder in her eyes as she looked at the massive object. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Dr. Nina Rodriguez, the ship's scientist, who studied alien life forms. She was younger than the captain, with dark hair and curious eyes that always seemed to be asking questions. "I don't know," Captain Drake replied, "but it's definitely not made by humans. The energy readings are off the charts. Commander Burke, I want you to take a small team over there to investigate." Commander Alex Burke nodded. He was the captain's second in command, a calm man who never seemed to get excited about anything. "Who do you want on the team, Captain?" "Take Rodriguez for her expertise with alien technology. Take Carter for security. And take Morrison for technical support." Jake felt his heart jump. He had never been on an away mission before. Most of his work was done inside the ship, fixing things that broke down. But the captain was right to choose him. If there was alien technology over there, they would need someone who was good with machines. Lieutenant Ben Carter stepped forward. He was the ship's head of security, a big man with short hair and serious eyes. "What are we looking for?" "Captain answers," Captain Drake said. "That structure has been drifting out here for who knows how long. It might have information about who built it or why they built it, but be careful. We don't know if it's dangerous." An hour later, Jake found himself suited up and climbing into a small shuttle with the other 3 team members. His hands were shaking a little as he checked his equipment. He had never been inside an alien structure before. None of them had. Humans had only been traveling in space for about 100 years. They had never found anything like this. The shuttle flew slowly toward the alien structure. As they got closer, Jake could see that it was even bigger than it had looked from the ship. The patterns on the surface were definitely moving, flowing like water across the metal surface. The structure seemed to be made of some kind of crystal, mixed with metal, creating a surface that was both hard and organic looking. "There," Commander Burke said, pointing to what looked like an opening in the side of the structure. "Looks like it might be a door." The shuttle docked with the alien structure without any problems. Jake was surprised that the docking systems worked at all, but somehow the alien technology seemed to understand what they were trying to do. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and they stepped inside. The corridor they entered was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The walls were covered in the same flowing patterns they had seen on the outside, but here the light was stronger. The patterns seemed to respond to their presence, glowing brighter as they walked past. The air was thick and warm, with a strange smell that reminded Jake of flowers and metal mixed together. "The air is breathable," Dr. Rodriguez said, checking her instruments, "but there's something else here. Some kind of energy that's making my equipment act strange." They walked deeper into the structure, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Jake noticed that the walls seemed to be watching them. It's not literally, but the patterns in the crystal changed as they passed, as if the structure itself was aware of their presence. After walking for about 20 minutes, they found a large chamber at the center of the structure. The room was circular, with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. In the center of the room stood something that made them all stop and stare. It was clearly some kind of being. But whether it was alive or a machine was impossible to tell. The figure stood 12 feet tall, with long arms and legs that looked both mechanical and organic. Its body was covered in smooth metal that seemed to flow like liquid, and its face was a mixture of features that looked almost human but definitely. Alien patterns of light ran under its skin like veins, but they were dim and flickering. "Is it alive?" Lieutenant Carter asked, his hand moving to his weapon. Dr. Rodriguez approached carefully, her scanner in her hand. "I'm getting life signs, but they're very weak. It's like it's sleeping or in some kind of stasis." Jake found himself walking toward the being without really thinking about it. Something about it called to him. As he got closer, he could see that parts of its body were damaged. There were scorch marks on its chest and arms, and some of the light patterns under its skin were dark and broken. "Jake, be careful," Commander Burke warned, but Jake was already studying the being's systems. Even though the technology was completely alien, he could see how it worked. It was like looking at a machine and an animal at the same time. The being had been hurt badly, and it had been in this condition for a very long time. "I think I can help it," Jake said softly. "Help it." Lieutenant Carter moved closer, his weapon ready. "We don't even know what it is." "It's in pain," Jake said, though he wasn't sure how he knew that. "Look at the damage. Something hurt it a long time ago, and it's been suffering ever since." Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "Jake's right. The energy patterns suggest that this being is in some kind of distress, but fixing it could be dangerous. We don't know what it will do if we wake it up." Jake looked at the alien being's face. Even though it was clearly not human, there was something in its features that looked peaceful, almost kind. His instincts told him that this being was not dangerous, at least not to them. "I want to try," Jake said. "If we can help it, maybe it can help us understand this place." Commander Burke was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Morrison, but we do this carefully. If anything goes wrong, we get out of here immediately." Jake smiled and opened his toolkit. Had no idea what he was getting himself into, but he knew he had to try. The being in front of him needed help, and Jake had never been able to turn away from something that needed fixing. He just hoped he wouldn't regret his decision. Jake spent the rest of that day studying the alien being from every angle he could. The creature stood perfectly still, like a statue made of flowing metal and crystal. Its chest rose and fell very slowly, so slowly that Jake had to watch for several minutes to see it breathe. The light patterns under its skin flickered weakly, like a dying campfire. Commander Burke had contacted Captain Drake to report what they had found. The captain ordered them to set up a temporary base in the chamber so they could study the being safely. Lieutenant Carter was not happy about staying so close to something they did not understand, but he followed orders and set up security equipment around the room. Dr. Rodriguez worked with her instruments, trying to understand how the being's body worked. She discovered that it was part machine and part living creature, unlike anything in human science books. The technology was so advanced that her scanners could barely read it. "The neural pathways are incredible," she told Jake as they worked. "It's like its brain is connected to every part of its body through these light channels, but many of them are broken or blocked." Jake nodded, running his hands over a damaged section on the being's arm. The metal felt warm and seemed to respond to his touch, glowing slightly brighter. "It's like a computer that's been hit by lightning. The hardware is mostly okay, but the connections are all messed up. You think you can fix it?" Commander Burke asked. He had been watching Jake work for hours, impressed by how quickly the young technician seemed to understand the alien technology. "Maybe," Jake said. "But I need to understand more about how it works first. This isn't like any machine I've ever seen. It's alive, but it's also mechanical. The two parts work together in ways that shouldn't be possible." Over the next 3 days, Jake barely slept. He was obsessed with understanding the alien being. He found that when he touched certain parts of its body, the light patterns would respond. The being seemed to recognize that someone was trying to help it, even though it remained unconscious. Dr. Rodriguez helped him map out the creature's systems. They discovered that it had what looked like a power source in its chest, but it was running very low on energy. There were also what appeared to be memory banks in its head, but they were badly damaged. It's like it was in a terrible fight, Jake said, pointing to scorch marks on the being's torso. Something hit it with a lot of energy, probably some kind of weapon. The damage is old, maybe hundreds or thousands of years old. Lieutenant Carter remained suspicious. What if it was the bad guy in that fight? What if we're helping something? Dangerous? Jake looked at the being's face again. Even unconscious, there was something peaceful about its expression. I don't think so. Look at its hands. They're designed for creating things, not destroying them. The way its body is built. It's meant to protect, not attack. On the fourth day, Jake made a breakthrough. He discovered that the being's technology didn't work the same way human machines did. Human computers use electricity and logic. This creature's systems seemed to respond to emotions and intentions as much as to technical input. Why? I can understand it, Jake explained to Dr. Rodriguez. It's not just about knowing how to fix machines. It responds to how I feel about it. When I approach it with respect and care, the systems open up to me. That's incredible, Dr. Rodriguez said. It suggests a level of consciousness that goes far beyond artificial intelligence. This being might actually have what we would call a soul. Jake spent the next day working on the being's power source. It was failing because several key components had been damaged in the ancient battle. Using parts from his own toolkit and some creative thinking, Jake managed to repair the most critical systems. The light patterns under the being's skin grew brighter, and its breathing became more regular. But the real challenge was the creature's memory banks. Jake could see that they contained vast amounts of information, but the damage was so severe that accessing them safely would be almost impossible. Worse, he realized that someone would need to connect directly with the being's consciousness to guide the repair process from the inside. That's too dangerous, Commander Burke said, when Jake explained what he had discovered. We don't know what connecting with an alien mind could do to you, but it's the only way, Jake insisted. The being's consciousness is fragmented. It needs someone to help it remember how to put itself back together. I've been working with its systems for days now. I understand how it thinks, at least a little bit. Dr. Rodriguez studied her readings. The neural interface would be temporary. Jake would be connected to the being's mind just long enough to help it reorganize its memories. But there are risks. We don't know how compatible human and alien consciousness are. Jake looked at the being, then at his teammates. I want to try. This creature has been suffering for thousands of years. If there's a chance I can help it, I have to take it. Lieutenant Carter shook his head. What if it takes over your mind? What if you can't disconnect? Then you'll have to pull me out, Jake said simply. But I don't think that will happen. Every time I've worked on its systems, it's been gentle with me. It knows I'm trying to help. Commander Burke was quiet for a long time. Finally, he contacted Captain Drake to explain the situation. After an hour of discussion, the captain gave permission for Jake to attempt the connection. But only if Dr. Rodriguez could monitor his vital signs and disconnect him if anything went wrong. Jake spent the rest of the day preparing. He studied the being's neural patterns and practiced connecting with its simpler systems. Each time he made contact, he felt a sense of vast loneliness and pain, but also hope. The being somehow knew that help was coming. As the ship's lights dimmed to simulate night, Jake prepared for the neural interface. He had built a simple connection device using human technology adapted to work with the alien systems. Oh, it wasn't elegant, but it should work. Are you sure about this? Dr. Rodriguez asked as she attached monitoring equipment to Jake. Jake nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. This being needs help and I'm the only one who can give it. He placed his hands on the connection points he had identified on the being's head. The metal felt warm and seemed to pulse with life. Jake closed his eyes and opened his mind to whatever was waiting for him inside the alien consciousness. The moment the connection formed, Jake felt like he was falling through space and time. Images flashed through his mind so quickly he could barely process them. He saw alien worlds, vast battles between creatures of light and darkness, and civilizations that rose and fell like waves on a beach. But through it all, he felt the being's presence guiding him. It was ancient and wise, but also kind and gentle. It had been waiting for someone like Jake, someone who could understand both technology and compassion. Together, they began the slow process of repairing the damage to the being's memories. Jake helped organize the scattered thoughts and experiences, while the being showed him wonders beyond human imagination. Hours passed like minutes as they worked together to heal the wounds that had been left by the ancient battle. When Jake finally opened his eyes, he found himself looking into the most beautiful pair of alien eyes he had ever seen. The being was awake, and it was looking at him with gratitude and something that might have been love. The repair was complete, but Jake somehow knew that this was just the beginning of something much larger. The alien being's eyes were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They were large and deep, filled with swirling colors that seemed to change like clouds in a storm. But more than their appearance, it was what Jake felt when he looked into them that took his breath away. There was intelligence there, ancient and vast, but also kindness and gratitude. The being slowly moved its head, looking around the chamber as if seeing it for the first time in thousands of years. When its gaze returned to Jake, it spoke, but not with words. Instead, Jake heard a voice inside his mind, warm and musical. "You have given me back my life," the voice said. "I am called Zephyr. What are you called, small brave one?" Jake found that he could speak back the same way, just by thinking his words clearly. "I'm Jake. Jake Morrison. Are you okay? You feel better?" Zephyr slowly sat up, then carefully stood. The alien guardian was even more impressive when moving. Its body flowed like water, but Jake could see the incredible strength in its limbs. The light patterns under its skin were now bright and steady, pulsing in rhythm with what Jake somehow knew was its heartbeat. "I feel," old Zephyr said, flexing its long fingers. "For so many years, I existed in fragments, pieces of myself scattered like leaves in a storm. You helped me gather those pieces and become complete again." Commander Burke, Dr. Rodriguez, and Lieutenant Carter had been watching in amazement. When they saw Jake having a conversation with the alien, even though no spoken words were being exchanged, they approached carefully. "Jake," Commander Burke said quietly, "are you all right? Can you understand what it's saying?" Jake turned to his teammates and for the first time realized that something had changed in him as well. He could still see and hear normally, but there was something extra now. He could sense the emotions of the people around him, feel their fear and curiosity and wonder. But most strongly, he could feel Zephyr's presence in his mind, not controlling him, but connected to him in a way that felt permanent. "His name is Zephyr," Jake said out loud. "He can communicate directly with me through our minds, and yes, I'm okay. It's better than okay, actually." Zephyr turned to look at the other humans. When the alien guardian spoke this time, everyone could hear the words in their minds. "I greet you, friends of Jake Morrison. I am Zephyr, last guardian of the Vorthok people. I owe you all a debt that can never be repaid. Your companion has not only saved my life, but has given me purpose again." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Guardian, what were you guarding? Happened to your people?" Zephyr was quiet for a moment, and Jake could feel waves of sadness coming from the alien's mind. When Zephyr spoke again, his mental voice was heavy with old grief. "My people created us guardians to protect younger races from an ancient evil called the Devourers. They are beings of pure hunger that consume entire worlds, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. For millions of years, the guardians fought too. Keep them contained in the dark spaces between stars." Jake felt images flowing from Zephyr's mind into his own, saw battles that raged across galaxies, creatures of light fighting against things made of living darkness. He saw the Vorthok, a tall and graceful people who looked something like Zephyr, but smaller and more delicate. And he saw their end, when the Devourers finally broke through the barriers that had held them for so long. "The final battle was fought here," Zephyr continued. "I was the last of my kind still functioning when the Devourer Lord came. We fought for days, but I was badly damaged. I managed to force it back into the void, but the effort nearly destroyed me. I went into emergency stasis, hoping that someday another Guardian would find me and repair the damage. Lieutenant Carter looked nervous. You said you were the last Guardian. Does that mean the Devourers are still out there? They are contained, but not destroyed, Zephyr replied. And my awakening will have sent ripples through space that they will eventually sense. They will come looking for me, and when they do, they will discover your people as well. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are we in danger? Zephyr turned to look at him, and Jake felt a wave of protective feelings from the alien's mind. Not while I exist to defend you. But Jake Morrison, when I awakened and found you in my mind, something unexpected happened. The bond we formed during the repair process has changed us both. Changed us how? Jake asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. In my people's culture, a Guardian chooses one person to be their focus. Someone they are bound to protect and serve. Usually, this person is chosen from among the Vorthok. But you are the first being to touch my consciousness in 3,000 years. You have become my chosen one, Jake Morrison. I am now bound to you until one of us ceases to exist. Jake felt the truth of those words in his heart. The connection between him and Zephyr was not something that could be broken or ignored. It was as real as gravity or sunlight. Commander Burke looked worried. What does that mean for Jake? Is he still human? Is still human, Zephyr assured them. But the bond has given him access to some of my abilities, just as it has given me insight into human nature. He can now perceive energy patterns that are invisible to normal humans. And his mind can process information much faster than before. In return, I have learned to understand emotions and creativity in ways my people never could. Dr. Rodriguez was taking readings with her instruments. Jake's brain activity has definitely changed. There are new neural pathways that weren't there before. But he's still essentially human. If anything, the changes seem to have enhanced his natural abilities rather than replacing them. Jake found that he could now see the energy flowing through the alien structure around them. The walls were alive with power, and he could sense other systems throughout the massive construct. It's most interesting of all. He could feel other presences, faint but definitely there. Zephyr, Jake said. There are others here, aren't there? Other Guardians? Zephyr nodded. 7 others, all in deep stasis. They were damaged in the final battle, but not as badly as I was. With time and care, they could be awakened. But they won't have chosen ones like you do, Jake said. No, that bond is rare and special. It cannot be forced or faked. It happens only when 2 minds touch in perfect trust and understanding. Zephyr moved closer to Jake, and the human could feel the alien's gratitude and affection like warmth. From a fire. Shh. You saved me not because you had to, but because you wanted to help. That kind of compassion is what created our bond. Lieutenant Carter was still suspicious. How do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know you won't try to control Jake or use him against us? Zephyr knelt down so that he was closer to the human's eye level, because Jake can feel my thoughts and intentions just as I can feel his. He knows that I speak truth. Bond works both ways. I cannot deceive him, nor he me. Jake nodded. He's right. I can sense his emotions, his memories, his purposes. Zephyr isn't a threat to humanity. If anything, he wants to help us, to teach us how to defend ourselves against the real threats that are out there. Commander Burke activated his communicator. Captain Drake, we need to talk. The situation here has become much more complicated. As they prepared to contact the ship, Jake felt Zephyr's presence in his mind like a warm, steady light. The alien Guardian had chosen him, and Jake had accepted that choice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. But Jake could also sense something else in Zephyr's thoughts. A growing concern about the signals that had been sent out when the Guardian awakened. Somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, ancient enemies were stirring, and they would eventually come looking for the source of those signals. The real adventure was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Zephyr's awakening, and Jake was still getting used to his new abilities. The bond with the alien Guardian had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. He could now see energy patterns flowing through The ship's systems sensed the emotions of his crewmates, and processed complex information at speeds that amazed even himself. The Horizon's Edge had resumed its exploration mission. But now with Zephyr aboard as their guide and protector, the alien guardian had quickly adapted to life on the human ship, though his 12-foot height meant that most doorways had to be enlarged. The crew had been nervous at first, but Zephyr's gentle nature and obvious care for Jake had won over. Most of them, Captain Drake, had been particularly interested in the knowledge Zephyr could share about space travel and alien technology. The Guardian had helped them improve their engines and shields, using principles that human science was only beginning to discover. But Jake could sense that the captain was also worried about the threats Zephyr had warned them about. Jake was working in the engine room when the ship's alarms started blaring. He immediately felt Zephyr's presence in his mind, sharp and alert. "Jake, we are needed on the bridge immediately." Zephyr's mental voice was urgent. "I sense something approaching that should not be here." Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the bridge, with Zephyr following close behind. When they arrived, they found the crew gathered around the main display screen, looking at something that made Jake's blood run cold. There were ships approaching, but they were unlike anything in human records. They looked like they were made of twisted metal and dark energy, and they moved through space in ways that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. Even more disturbing, Jake could sense something wrong about them through his enhanced perception. They felt empty, hungry, like holes in reality itself. "What are those things?" Captain Drake asked, her voice tight with concern. Zephyr moved to the center of the bridge, his tall form tense with readiness. "Devourer scouts, they have found us much sooner than I expected. They're drawn to strong life forces, and this ship carries many healthy minds." Dr. Rodriguez checked her instruments. "They're not showing up properly on our scanners. It's like they're partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else." "That is exactly what they are," Zephyr confirmed. "The Devourers exist in the spaces between realities. They can only fully enter our dimension when they feed on living energy." Lieutenant Carter was already at the weapons station. "Can we fight them?" "Your weapons will have little effect on them," Zephyr said. "Oh, but do not despair. I was built to fight these creatures." "Jake, I will need your help." Jake felt a surge of fear, but also determination. Through their bond, he could sense Zephyr's confidence and strength. "What do you need me to do?" "Our bond allows us to work together in ways that neither of us could manage alone. I will need you to interface with the ship's systems while I engage the enemy directly. Together, we can turn this vessel into something the Devourers have never faced before." Captain Drake looked between Jake and Zephyr. "What are you talking about?" Jake was already understanding what Zephyr meant. Through their connection, he could see how the ship's systems could be modified using the Guardian's knowledge. "We can combine human technology with Vorthok principles. The ship's shields and weapons can be enhanced far beyond their normal limits, but only if Zephyr and I work together to control them." "Do it," Captain Drake ordered. "Whatever you need." Jake moved to the main control panel, while Zephyr placed his hands on the ship's primary power conduits. The moment they began working together, Jake felt their minds merge in a way that was deeper than ever before. He could suddenly understand systems and principles that had taken the Vorthok thousands of years to develop. The ship began to change around them. The lights shifted from their normal white to the blue-green glow that Jake associated with Vorthok technology. The engines hummed with new power, and the shields became visible as shimmering barriers around the hull. "Incredible," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. "The energy output has increased by over 300%. Through the enhanced sensors, Jake could now see the Devourer scouts clearly. There were 5 of them, each one about the size of the Horizon's Edge, but shaped like twisted spears. They moved through space like swimming things, leaving trails of darkness behind them. The lead scout fired some kind of energy weapon at the ship. Jake watched through the sensors as a beam of pure emptiness shot toward them. But when it hit their enhanced shields, the beam simply disappeared, absorbed harmlessly. "Impossible," came a voice over the communication system, but it was not a voice that belonged to any living thing. It sounded like the echo of screams in an empty cave. "The prey has Guardian technology." How Zephyr stepped forward. and when he spoke, his voice carried across space to the Devourer ships. I am Zephyr, guardian of the Vorthok. You will not harm these people, Zephyr the voice replied, and Jake could hear hatred in it. You should have died with the rest of your kind, but no matter. We will consume you and your new pets together. The 5 scout ships attacked at once, firing their emptiness beams and launching what looked like living shadows toward the horizon's edge. But Jake and Zephyr were ready for them. Working together, they turned the ship into something that moved. Like a dancer and struck like lightning, Jake found that he could control the ship's movements with his thoughts, while Zephyr channeled power through the weapon systems. They dodged attacks that should have been impossible to avoid and returned fire with beams of pure energy that cut through the Devourer ships like hot knives through ice. The battle lasted only a few minutes, but to Jake it felt like hours. Was completely focused on the dance of combat, his mind linked with Zephyr's in perfect harmony. They moved as one being, thinking and acting together in ways that amazed the watching crew. When the last Devourer scout exploded in a burst of dark energy, Jake collapsed into a chair, exhausted. The ship's systems returned to normal, and the alien glow faded from the lights. That was incredible, Lieutenant Carter said, his voice full of awe. I've never seen anything like it. But Zephyr was not celebrating. Jake could feel worry and concern flowing from the Guardian's mind. This was only the beginning. The scouts have sent word back to their masters before they died. A full Devourer fleet will come looking for us. Captain Drake looked grim. How long do we have? A week, perhaps less. The Devourers do not forget, and they do not forgive. They will bring enough ships to consume not just us, but any human worlds they find along the way. Jake stood up, still feeling the effects of their mental merger. Then we need to warn Earth and the other colonies. We need to prepare humanity for what's coming. Warning will not be enough, Zephyr said sadly. Humanity is not ready to fight the Devourers. Your weapons and shields are too primitive, your people too scattered. Enemy will destroy your civilization before you can mount an effective defense. Dr. Rodriguez looked thoughtful. But you said there were other Guardians in that structure. If we could awaken them... 7 others, Zephyr confirmed. But they would need chosen ones of their own. Humans who could bond with them as Jake has bonded with me. And even then, 8 Guardians would not be enough to protect all of human space. Jake felt a strange calm settle over him as he realized what had to be done. Through his bond with Zephyr, he could sense the Guardian coming to the same conclusion. There's another way, Jake said quietly. Isn't there, Zephyr? The alien Guardian nodded slowly. Yes, but it would require a sacrifice that I cannot ask. You too make. Jake looked around at his crewmates, these people who had become his family over the years. Then he looked at Zephyr, feeling the depth of their connection and the trust between them. Tell me, Jake said. Tell me what we need to do. Zephyr's mental voice was heavy with sadness when he explained what they would need to do. There is a way to multiply our power, to become strong enough to defeat an entire Devourer fleet. But it would require us to merge completely, to become one being instead of 2 separate ones working together. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. What do you mean completely? I mean that you would no longer be fully human, and I would no longer be fully Vorthok. We would become something new, something that has never existed before. The process cannot be undone. You would lose your human form and much of what makes you Jake Morrison. The bridge was silent as everyone absorbed what Zephyr had said. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak. Jake, you can't seriously be considering this. We don't know what the long-term effects would be. But Jake was already feeling the truth of it through his bond with Zephyr. He could sense the incredible power that such a merger would create, but also the price it would cost. He would become something beyond human understanding, able to protect his people, but no longer truly one of them. How long before the Devourer fleet arrives? Jake asked. Zephyr closed his eyes, extending his senses into space. 3 days. They're coming in force. I count at least 50 ships, led by a Devourer lord. It is the same one I fought before, the one who destroyed my people. Captain Drake looked at the tactical display which showed the approaching enemy fleet as red dots moving toward human space. We need to contact Earth's command. They need to know what's coming. It will not matter, Zephyr said sadly. Earth command will mobilize the fleet, but human weapons cannot harm the Devourers. Your people will die bravely, but they will still die. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were billions of human beings living their lives, unaware that an ancient evil was coming to destroy them. Children playing, families eating dinner, people falling in love, all of it threatened by creatures that consumed entire worlds. Through his bond with Zephyr, Jake could feel the Guardian's memories of what the Devourers had done to other civilizations. He saw worlds stripped of all life, their surfaces turned to ash and dust. He felt the echoes of countless screams from people who had faced the same choice that humanity now faced. If I do this, Jake said quietly, if we merge completely, would we be strong enough to stop them all? Yes, Zephyr replied. The combined power of human creativity and Vorthok technology, unified in a single consciousness, would be more than enough to defeat even a Devourer Lord. But Jake, you must understand what you would be giving up. You would never again walk among humans as one of them. You would become their protector, but also their guardian, watching over them from a distance. Jake turned back to his crewmates. These people had been his family for years. Commander Burke had taught him leadership. Dr. Rodriguez had shared her love of discovery. Lieutenant Carter had shown him courage. Captain Drake had given him a chance to be more than just a technician. The thought of losing his connection to them was almost unbearable. But through the window, he could see the darkness between the stars, and he knew that something far worse than loneliness was coming for everyone he cared about. There has to be another way, Dr. Rodriguez said desperately. Maybe we can find more Guardians or develop new weapons, or... There's no time, Zephyr interrupted gently, and no other choice that would save your people. I am sorry, Jake. I wish I could offer you an easier path. Jake felt tears running down his face, but his voice was steady when he spoke. How do we do it? Jake, no, Captain Drake said firmly. I won't order you to sacrifice yourself for the rest of us. You're not ordering me, Jake replied. I'm choosing this. It's what I want to do. Lieutenant Carter stepped forward. Maybe we should vote on it? This affects all of humanity, not just Jake. No vote, Jake said, wiping his eyes. This is my choice to make. Zephyr chose me as his bonded partner, and I choose to do whatever it takes to protect my people. Over the next 2 days, Jake spent his time saying goodbye. He talked with each of his crewmates, sharing memories and making sure they understood how much their friendship had meant to him. Dr. Rodriguez tried one last time to talk him out of it, but Jake's mind was made up. On the morning of the 3rd day, the Devourer fleet appeared on the edge of the solar system. The ships were massive, each one the size of a small moon, and they moved through space like a swarm of hungry insects. At their center was the largest ship of all, a twisted cathedral of dark metal that hurt to look at directly. The Devourer Lord's flagship, Zephyr said, his mental voice filled with old hatred. It was built from the bones of my homeworld. Jake took a deep breath and walked to the center of the bridge. Are you ready, Zephyr? I am ready. But Jake, before we begin, I want you to know that it has been an honor to know you. Your compassion and courage have shown me that consciousness can take many forms, but goodness is universal. Jake smiled, feeling Zephyr's affection and respect flowing through their bond. Same here, my friend. Let's go save the world. The merger process was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. It began with their minds touching more deeply than ever before, their thoughts and memories flowing together like rivers joining the sea. Jake felt himself expanding, becoming more than human, while Zephyr became more than Vorthok. His body began to change, growing taller and stronger, taking on the flowing lines of Vorthok design while retaining something essentially human in its grace and warmth. Light patterns appeared under his skin, but they pulsed with a rhythm that was both alien and familiar. The crew watched in amazement and fear as Jake transformed. When the process was complete, he stood 9 feet tall, his body a perfect blend of human and Vorthok features. His eyes held the depth of ancient wisdom, but also the spark of human creativity. "I am still Jake," he said, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the air itself sing. "But I am also Zephyr. We are one being now, with all the power of both our peoples." Through the ship's sensors, Joxifer could feel the Devourer fleet approaching Earth. The Lord's flagship was already beginning to feed on the outer planets, draining their life force to power its weapons. "Stay back," Joxifer told the crew. "This is no longer your fight." He walked to the airlock, his new form moving with liquid grace. The ship's systems opened the doors automatically, responding to his merged consciousness. Without a suit or protection of any kind, Joxifer stepped out into the vacuum of space. The moment his feet left the ship, he began to glow with the same blue-green light that had marked Vorthok technology. But this light was brighter, warmer, filled with human hope and determination. He moved through space as easily as walking through air. His merged consciousness, controlling reality around him in ways that seemed like magic. The Devourer. Lord sensed his approach and sent its entire fleet to stop him. 50 massive ships fired their emptiness beams at once, trying to drain Joxifer's life force. But the attack had no effect. The combined power of human creativity and Vorthok technology was too strong to be consumed. Joxifer raised his hands and light poured from his fingers like liquid starfire. The light touched the Devourer ships, and they simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed but unmade, their dark energy converted back into the cosmic harmony they had disrupted. The Devourer Lord itself tried to flee, but Joxifer was faster. He caught the massive ship in a web of pure energy and spoke to the ancient evil inside it. "Your time is over," he said, his voice carrying across space to every corner of the galaxy. "The younger races are under my protection now." The Devourer Lord screamed as it died, a sound like the collapse of stars. And with its death, the threat that had hung over the galaxy for millions of years finally ended. Joxifer returned to the horizon's edge. But he knew he could never really come home again. He was humanity's guardian now, powerful beyond imagination, but forever changed. As he looked at his old crewmates through the window, he smiled with both sadness and joy. Humanity was safe. And somewhere in the stars, other young civilizations would grow and thrive under his protection. Jake Morrison. The technician was gone, but his choice had given birth to something greater than either human or Vorthok had ever dreamed possible.